Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Our next speaker is Jonathan Argo- Arnault. I am terrible with French. He's the CEO of Fuel Trust. We were just chatting, and he has a very interesting story around some very severe issues with the marine industry and fuel. And I've been involved with that a little bit, but it sounds fascinating. So please welcome our next speaker.
It's me and then one other person, and then you get to pat us on the back. Today went exactly as I thought it would, and I want to congratulate our speakers. I want to tell you did phenomenal. It was deep, it was insightful, it had detail. You were transparent as much as your lawyers would let you be. And it validated my assumption that you were going to cover any of the geeky stuff that I was going to cover early on. And so when I chose not to be deep and geeky, it was based on the fact that I believed you were going to be, and you fulfilled my expectations. A little bit about me, and then I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today. So I'm Jonathan Arnault. My background is in technology. I was an engineer. I have gotten the executive lobotomy. I started my career in consulting development in the pharmaceutical and vaccination space. Developed a number of social services programs for a number of states. Then I deployed the world's first intranet at General Electric. And then the company's products that I was using there turned around and hired me. I couldn't believe I told them no for 2 years. What kind of moron was I? Because Netscape came calling. Finally, I said yes to them, worked for them for several years, developed electronic stock trading. We developed the E-Trade site and then the Ameritrade site and several other brokerage houses. So I moved over in that whole high-profile, high-risk space. Got bought 3 or 4 times in that process from a couple of other startups that I went to right after Netscape. I've been acquired 5 times, 4 startups and 5 acquisitions. That was kind of a magic trick. This is my 5th startup, by the way. Fuel Trust is a startup. Its first product will be released to the public in 2 weeks. What else? Deep data analytics. I worked at Essential Software, which was big data, neural networks, metadata management, et cetera. And then I worked for this little tiny company that bought Essential for quite a few years called IBM. I have multiple jobs at IBM, but my latest one was running IBM Watson Cloud. So through the infancy of a public AI model and a public cloud model all the way till last July when I left to start Fuel Trust. So I've been around, right? And I actually have put my hands on numerous products. I am a technologist at heart. Spent my time with neural networking and early phase implementation of not just machine learning, but AI and big data processing. So with all that, I've given you my creds. I am not going to geek out beyond that. Maybe a little. But what I have been really good at doing over time is taking the promise of technology and making it reality. And so I'm going to give you some clues and cues on how to do that within your organizations and with your partner organizations around you. That's the purpose of what we're going to talk about. Now, the problem we have today is that people hear about AI or machine learning, and we set this grand vision of Tomorrowland. And you'll find that if you've not seen the Disney movie Tomorrowland, you're going to see a whole lot about it today. I highly recommend you see that movie. It's very engaging. But Tomorrowland is something that we do want to talk about with our businesses. Not hype, but vision, right? If you don't set a vision for what the possibilities are, of what the potentials are, of the dream of the boundless stars, you'll never be able to take a moonshot. You convince your organization not if we do this one project we can get X. That's true, but you're going to get limited funding, you're going to get a little pilot, you're going to get a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and you're going to have 1,000 of those things all vying for little crumbs at the table. Tell your organization about the vast wonders of the universe, and here are the things we can do over time to get there. Your moonshot doesn't happen in one leap. The space program that we had here in America and in all the other nations developed as we took step by step by step, all with the goal of not only getting to space, but getting to the moon. We learned how to build rockets that could transport human beings. We learned about how to navigate throughout space. We learned how to dock. We learned how to create safety support systems. We gained incredible amounts of economic value out of the space program while we were still trying to get to the moon. The moon shot was not a one-time event. It was the culmination of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of steps along the way to get there. And even now today, that continues as we dream of going beyond the moon to Mars and perhaps beyond that. Now that sounds like hype, but not only do you need to be a dreamer, you need to speak that dream into existence. And not just by convincing one person, you can become the SME of the dream of Tomorrowland. So, I'll give you 6 P's to get there. 6 P's to look out for. We're going to talk about this as our agenda. That's it. But understand that disruptive technology consistently is going to be an issue when we look across getting to Tomorrowland. Each of these are issues that you're going to have to talk about and you're going to have to address and that you're going to have to overcome over and over and over and over again. Every one of those potential steps, every one of those intermediary technology developments, every one of those skunk works, and every one of those failures, you'll have to address these over and over. You will become the expert in the 6 P's of getting to Tomorrowland. By the way, this is not just true of AI. We all lived this in the early 2000s, up to about 2012, of getting to big data. Data analytics, the ideas of monstrous data warehouses and data marts and data cleansing. We've been through this before, and now, instead of us telling the machine what to do, we're trying to teach the machine like it's an infant. And so please understand that this same process of technology innovation will happen many times throughout your career, and you'll teach it to your children and your children's children and so on. So, first, before we get to those 6 P's, let me give you a shameless other one, a plug. Here's what Fuel Trust does. We deal with residual fuels. It's 12% of all crude oil is refined and processed, and then there's this sludge that's left over that goes to the marine market. It is heavy fuels, it's cracked fuels, it's mixed fuels, it's dirty, it's got lots of stuff. What we do is we address the problems in that market with regard to fraud, with regard to compatibility and visibility across the fuel supply chain. And we do that not by putting sensors and making everybody sign up and all that. We're actually tracing the fuel itself from batch to batch to batch, giving real-time compatibility as it goes from the midstream blender to the supplier to the ship and up the pipe, right? And so we're tracing the entire life cycle once it becomes usable fuel all the way till it becomes exhaust at the other end, and the optimization of that whole process in order to drive more purchases, reduce fraud, which is about somewhere between $10 and $12 billion a year, and create better outcomes for the buyer of that fuel. Hence, they're able to get more value from it and buy more from quality suppliers. That's what we do. That's the end of me talking about this. Be glad to talk to you later about it. Okay, so firstly, the first P is the promise of AI, right? AI is dreamed of. Tomorrowland is automation enabling luxury. So when you talk to your business executives, your business owners, what they want to know is it going to make me more money? Is it going to keep me out of trouble? And is it going to make my life easier? That's the luxury that they're looking for. The promise is one of those 3 things. We really want robots and systems which are self-aware, self-correcting, and self-motivated. We are not anywhere close to that right now. We can have some microcosms that kind of look like it, kind of pretend it, but we're not even close. Next, we want things like medicine, transportation, energy, exploration that is limitless. And we want infinite knowledge and communication at the touch of a screen or even implanted as a cyborg chip. These are promises, ideas and visions that the world wants. It's what your CEO, when he's on an airplane and watches a movie and say, yeah, can I get me some of that? It's okay to dream a little and to speak about the dreams. We want AI to accelerate our ability to answer life's hard questions, including the business that we're in. We want it to help us to devise new and near impossible questions. And we want it, AI to help us answer those questions and solve those problems far more rapidly and cheaply. Give that vision to your teammates, to your executives, to your managers, to your industry. Speak vision if you want the steps to get to that vision to even begin. Next, oops, I'm not moving forward. I pushed the big green button. Am I stuck here? There we go. The biggest thing, though, isn't the promise. We just want AI not to suck. The reality is that when we take things like the grand vision of AI and we turn it down to chatbots in our support desk or little data cleansing routines, we've taken this grand vision of the stars and we've made it suck. And so speak the vision of the stars and not a little tiny project or a little tiny pilot. Those things are what you do when you're trying to get to the moon. Nobody wanted to make a little rover that could go through a dust-filled desert. You had to make that dust-filled desert rover in order to have something that could transport you while you're on the moon. So understand, you're creating a lifetime of projects in order to do something amazing. And that way the future doesn't just suck. All right, moving forward. Next. Oh, I missed my click here. I'm trying to keep my notes over here. All right, so what are the potentials of AI? Well, you know a whole lot of them. And again, we are not near any autonomous or self-aware AI, but the massive flood of real-time data across digital oil fields, predictive operations, refineries, even the consumers in my space, the vessels, the midstreams, the trucks, the pipelines, all of those things mean that big data analytics simply can't provide realistic views of the use, the movements, and the demands for oil and gas. We heard earlier today that there are some companies that are really good at spot pricing because those things go in market demand, but who really needs this oil and when are they going to need it and where are they going to need it? AI gives us insight or capability to have insight into predictive analytics, but also responsive analytics, being able to answer those things in real time. Simply put, IoT is a tremendous opportunity to decrease costs, to increase uptime, and increase efficiency and sustainability, but IoT can't meet this opportunity without machine learning. IoT is simply data generation or systems control, SCADA. And yet, AI with it can give us insight into historical anomalies, patterns, real-time events, but it does then, if we do our jobs right, comprehend what all that means, correlate events, compensate for events, and then coordinate operations to create operational efficiency and operational business outcomes that meet business goals. AI can do that if we take step after step after step, but you have to paint the vision to get to Tomorrowland. Okay? Next. Ready? First, you need to hear this. Petroleum is not a pollutant. Inefficient use of petroleum results in pollution. What you get when you get carbon dioxide and you get soot and you get heavy metals in the air is because of an inefficient burn of fuel. If we can leverage AI to create better efficiencies, not by retooling all the engines, but by tweaking the engines, tweaking the fuels, giving better outcomes of what we produce to the market and how the market actually consumes that, we produce less pollution and we drive more demand for oil and gas. Let me say that again. We reduce pollution, we create sustainability, we create profitability, we increase profitability, and yet we make the environment better while we create greater demand for our products. Please understand, AI can help us get there. It's not simply a cost, it's not simply a measurement, it's not simply compensation. It can drive demand and create better outcomes. And the inefficient utilization of petroleum is the driver that I heard you say over and over today. CO2 is our biggest initiative. CO2 in a petroleum burn. Carbon is energy. If you burn more efficiently, you produce less CO2. Right? Moving ahead. So what are some of the pathways to get there? Again, moonshots. Believe in what we're producing. If machine learning can actually drive increased usage of fuels, not just production, increased usage of fuels, while lowering carbon and other exhaust outputs, how do we get there? How do enterprises take advantage of AI without, ready for this, that we can go back in time and see this over and over again, in EAI projects, data analytics projects, data warehousing projects, business process innovation, business process optimization, 80% abandonment rate. Well, you've talked about, well, we tried this and that one didn't work, and we tried this, because we set pilots and projects rather than moonshots. Do you know how many failures it took in the Apollo program to finally just to get to space? Failures aren't failures if the goal of them is to get to the moon. They are interruptions. They are learning opportunities. What does Elon Musk say all the time when one of his rockets blow up? It's a RUD, a rapid unplanned disassembly. It's a learning opportunity. You need to plan in your organization that is going to happen, and we're going to learn from it. Not just learn from our mistakes. We're going to gather data out of that dark happenstance. So, all right, there's some things that happen here. Firstly, choose your machine learning tooling and your AI engine. Notice I said those things separately. Choose them wisely. You don't need to have one, but you better not have 10. Let me say that again. You don't need to have one, but don't have 10. And don't create teams that compete with each other for which one's better than the other. It's okay for people to have parallel projects that are going after the same thing and learn from both, but don't let the scattershot things that happened in the information technology space happen here. It's too important. Nextly, start meaningful, not small. Help desk chatbots happen because people were afraid and they wanted to start small, and they did it. Teaching natural language processing to AI is hard. So if you start small, for all the effort you're giving, you're not ever going to get big, because small, the beginnings, is still hard. Right? I've got 4 kids. Do you know how long it took us to teach each one of them how to talk? Right? I can't. And suddenly, if you gave me another one and said, now take them to 18, you're like, what? So start meaningful. Take things that have meaning to your business, not just simple, small experimentations with tiny paybacks. Talk of the moonshot and plan out. We need these learning exercises early on to get there. The vision is what will carry that forward. Nextly, don't simply pull everybody in one space and build a new little fiefdom called AI. Create cadres of experts throughout your organization. Give learning opportunities, give action opportunities, give project opportunities, give collaboration opportunities, so that you spread throughout your organization capabilities and vision. And those cadres of experts can come together, they can correlate together in order to get to the vision. If you isolate them in one group, that one group can be shot real easy. If they're spread everywhere, it's real hard. Okay? By the way, I did that at IBM, and it ended up being a $10 billion annual recurring revenue opportunity by doing it that way. You can't shoot what you can't aim at, right? Next, I kind of talked about that, avoid departmentalization. Number 5, have 1,000 goals. It's okay, have 1,000 goals. Make those goals across 100 projects, absolutely fine, but have one system to do your natural language processing, to do your systematic measurement, to do your code check-ins, have one system that will gain value out of all of these projects and learnings and capabilities, instead of thousands of them that you have to figure out how to go integrate after the fact. Know that AI will require that you're going to have unsupervised learning. It absolutely is. Go learn your data set. Let your ML systems clean your data for you. Yes, you need SMEs that say, carbon sulfide means this. You need somebody who knows what that means. But do you need that SME to go cleanse all your data? No. You need your machine learning bots to go troll your data and teach itself. And then your SMEs come back and cleanse, correct, ask information of it. You're going to have supervised action. I need my machine to learn how to do this, so I'm going to throw lots of scenarios at it and try to learn, whether that be ML or you're trying to get to a general purpose AI knowledge set. And then, listen to me, this is the most important thing, and it requires the hardest work on human beings because machines can't do it themselves. Consistently, over and over and again, unceasingly feed backpropagation algorithms and data sets into your machine learning and your AI in order to ensure the outputs that it produces, the predictions it creates, are matched against real-world outcomes before AI ever touched them. Backpropagation is the secret to making AI reality. Let me say that again, backpropagation. You got to do all the hard work up front, and then it can be literally a Frankenstein monster. If you do backpropagation, you're suddenly teaching it to be a full-grown adult. Okay? Nextly, language. The hardest part of AI is not the algorithms, it's the language. What does this mean? What does it mean in this context? What does it mean if that context is slightly nuanced? How do I speak? Well, we're wrestling right now with the chemical property analytics. If I use the GPT-3, I'm getting nowhere with that. If I use the GL17 model, I might get there. If I use the Smiles model, it doesn't know what, those things don't talk to each other. Language is the hardest part of AI, and so you should expect, just like you constantly learn new words, so is your AI, and you're gonna have to give context around that language set meaning, okay? Know that that's gonna be your hardest thing to overcome all the time. You can't just buy a language model and say, I'm done. It won't work, okay? So, projects. Well, what's life if I don't have somebody to fund my grand vision or move along? Don't make your project about standing up a model. Don't make your project of I instantiated, TensorFlow or IBM Watson or Rekognition or those are steps of a project. They're not projects in and of themselves. They are going to feel like you're giving birth, but that's beside the point. Make your organizational goals the project. When you speak of your project, speak of goals and then sub-measurements, milestone measurements for success and or learning, right? That even a failure is a learning. So put milestones put failure milestones in your project. And then what are we going to learn? How are we going to learn? Make those things part of it, because you didn't fail, you learned. If that's a milestone, hey, great, I just spent $100,000 learning. All right? And then stand up your projects quick and get going quick and use cadres, borrow capabilities. This stuff is great, it's fun, and it's hard, but hey, you're doing something you haven't done in your entire career. People want to join the future. They want to go to Tomorrowland. Okay? Then, and hear me, if you want to live, if you want to survive, if you want this thing to really go forward and instantiate through your organization, if you want to make a difference, run it like a keiretsu. Okay? Don't be a monopoly. Make it diffused. Make everybody get value out of working with each other and helping each other's goals and making the thing run. Run it like a keiretsu. And make sure they're all measured on the success of the organization's goals, not their individual departments. And you got to do that by messaging to the execs, messaging to the execs, messaging to the execs, right? And then, because it's a keiretsu, coordinate shared tasks. Don't just presume that I'm going to do, you're going to do, I told you everything. No, coordinate. All right, you're going to take care of that. I don't have to do it because you're doing it. I'll do this for you. Collaborate. Get together and work, especially now that we're all remote. I mean, or at least we know how to do remote. And by the way, have teams with functional specialists instead of experts. Right? It's okay to have some experts out there, but if my job is to be a functional specialist, I might be the expert on this thing, but I'm not an expert who I can be shot at. I'm a functional specialist who I'm giving work over here, I'm giving work over there, and now I've diffused the capabilities and I've increased the capabilities because of that. And then I highly, highly, highly encourage you to create within your organizational dream the ideas of the Duke of Milan, Ludovico Sforza. Because in 1553, when he brought artists and architects and scientists and alchemists to his castle in Milan, he birthed the Renaissance. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, all came, and all of the great Renaissance artists of that century arose, became something. It created our modern age because Ludovico Sforza imagined if I brought them together and I got them to do their own thing, but in one environment, something great would happen. And it did. All right, moving ahead. Tomorrowland. Put some posters, make some beauty, make some vision. It's gonna be fabulous. If you've seen this movie, though, you know there's some dangers in Tomorrowland. There's some folks that want to shoot at Tomorrowland. There's some things to overcome. There's some difficulty. The biggest pitfall of AI, firstly, is having your boss watch a movie. He's going to dream it's going to be iRobot, so it's going to be a terror, and I don't want that. Or he's going to believe it's, World of Tomorrow and Visions. Okay, great. So if they're going to watch a movie, make sure you recommend the right ones to him or her. And then the second problem is not having too great a vision or too sci-fi or too way out there. The biggest problem is having too small of a vision. The biggest problem of AI is just solve my little problem here. Because to get AI off the ground, to train a machine learning model, to train a language set, it's really hard, really, really hard. And so having too small a vision will kill it in its infancy. A 2-year-old can't lift a ton. So give the grand vision, but not something that's sci-fi, never going to happen, right? Make things that are not just doable today, but we could get there if we do a moonshot, which means it's going to take us 10 years, but we're going to do amazing things all along those 10 years. You're going to have men in space. You're going to learn you're going to create all these new capabilities. You're going to create new markets, and yet you're still going to have a man in space, and then 5 years later, you're going to have a man on the moon. Give that kind of vision. And then, so that means you got to find the right problem to solve. No project, no good thing happens without a good problem. So find good problems, stuff that you'd be interested in, and so will others, to gather them to it, to build this model, and then you replicate and you replicate. The next is not spending, well, I talked about that, not spending enough time on your language models, and then you need to really not just create algorithms, you need to make the machine understand. I also would encourage you constantly learn. We heard a lot today about the black box of AI. Do you know there's actually systems out there today where you can apply tools to extract algorithms or meaningful sets? Go out and do some research, find those things, or go get some specialist consultants to help you with that. You can unblack box AI with some high degree of capability there. Look, you still have to put in the time when you have a toddler if you ever want them to be a teenager. Just because they can walk doesn't mean they can run, and certainly doesn't mean they can drive the car. Okay. Did I tell you I had 4 kids? Okay, next. Practical AI. I'm coming rapidly to close here. All right, so practical AI says this. You have all innovated before. You've all created projects. You've all invented. People believe in you. That's why you're here, right? We don't get to this spot in our career by not having done some amazing things. And so you know, and you need to let others know, in this moonshot idea, the Tomorrowland idea, that innovation is not only hard, it involves a whole lot of ugly, slogging work. Stuff that just never looks pretty and takes longer than people think. And when people are saying, when are you going to be done? The answer is, I don't know, when my toddler's going to learn how to walk and talk. But I'm teaching them. And I'm seeing slow progress, and it's going to happen. You're going to have to say, we're going to get that toddler through college, and they're going to be an amazing person, but we got to do this stuff first. And then you're going to celebrate the intermediary wins in what that toddler, that AI, is able to do. You need to avoid the distractions of the simple. Avoid the distractions of the simple. People keep telling me, and I've said it myself, I kind of believe it, that AI requires, artificial intelligence requires an information architecture. I've stopped believing that because I let the AI, the machine learning really, create the information architecture model. I let it figure out this data means that. I have to do the work to train it to do that, but then it will come back and create an information architecture. Unless you want big third normal form, or star schema data warehouses, that's different, but that's not what you want to do for AI. And so let the AI help propagate the meaning of information, how it's stored, how it accesses it, and what it's going to do there. Avoid the distractions of the simple. Don't say, I've got to go figure out all my metadata before I get on my algorithmic programming model to create my bot or my machine learning system so that I can then go get to some sort of second phase AI, or even 2.5 phase AI. Get to it. And then use machine learning as the stepping stone to real AI. Let me say this. You will always need machine learning modules to do the hard, grinding work. I appreciated Deanna's cartoon there saying that she was going to send this one bot out to data cleansing, because you're going to need that stuff. It doesn't have to be all-encompassing. Let some systematic work happen down there. Reduce the repetitive tasks of people and the organization through machine learning capabilities. And while you're doing it, take all those learnings, yours and the machine's learnings, and begin crafting the language of understanding in the organization that's needed for the machine to go beyond things like Bayesian models and probabilism and outliers, et cetera. Get to where the machine actually can take a human sentence with anomalies in it and begin to deal with it like you do. You can train your AI to do that, okay? And then, listen, I'm going to finish up. You can have your rocket pack, all right? But to get there, you got to tinker, and you've got to have some stuff to begin with. But nobody builds a rocket pack unless they want to fly. And so you have to give to your organization the dream of flying. And I want to fly because it's faster, it's better, it's cheaper, and it makes us special, all right? The vision is desperately important. It's not just about me giving you the spreadsheets and a cost-benefit analysis of this project. It's the grand vision of the stars, right? And then lastly, you need to know you can get there. You can get there. I quit my job on July 31st at IBM, paid me gobs of money, ran a $12 billion enterprise, 6,000 employees, because somebody gave me a problem that was worth it to me. And so we spent 3 months standing up a company, trying to figure out this, that, or the other thing. January 15th, I hired a bunch of developers, and then I got to alpha 3.5 weeks later with an AI and blockchain system. And everybody said it was impossible. Now, it's still pulling teeth. That toddler is still, puking up on me from every now and then. It's still a little bit tough for making people, but you can get there. And then the more you get there, the easier just to take the next step, and the next step, and the next step. You need to give those intermediary visions of what you're able to do and how you're going to go to market. Now, again, my lawyer told me I can't tell you anything because he's about to file our final patent for this month. So in 2 weeks, come talk to me. But I do want you to know, you get to go to Tomorrowland and make it to Dayland. It might take a little bit, it might take a little while, but if you'll set that grand vision, if you'll build a cadre of people that are believers that will partner with you across your organization and not just try to make everything perfect before you get going, if you give the grand vision, you can make Tomorrowland a reality in your enterprise. Thank you.
Wow, that was great. Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. So look, I'm a geek. I used to be a real wallflower. I know it doesn't look that way today. I'm going to give you a book. If you're not good at interacting with, not just interacting with executives, but making people believe in doing all that stuff, there's a book, buy it on Amazon, it's like $15, called How to Work a Room. It's 20, 25 years old. Folks like us, it will help you understand how to move organizations, crowds, peoples around a vision. Right? It's not about politics. It's about becoming somebody who other people want to follow. Okay? So that's my one word of advice that you can ask questions. How to work a room. See ya. Thank you.
Well, thanks again.